closet, also known as the Jim McCarthy Voiceovers World Headquarters Studio. This is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast. This is episode 35 of the JMVO Weekly Primer. This is a podcast about making your life better through marinating your mind in good stuff. My name is Jim McCarthy, owner, operator, chief bottle washer at jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com. Of course, I got to clear my throat every now and then. I believe that as business owners, entrepreneurs, and overall salespeople, we are bombarded by negativity every day, and it's the last thing we need. If you want to see your life and business change for the better, consume nurturing good stuff. It's the best thing you possibly can do. Of course, this and every episode until the foreseeable future is brought to you by Big Dot Lighting, commercial LED lighting conversion specialists here in the Southeast. We convert all sorts of commercial facilities to energy-efficient LED lighting. And it's interesting because we're getting hit up by a lot of businesses right now that are wanting to take advantage of this influx of cash. They got to burn off some expenses. So it's been really interesting. A lot of businesses wanting to convert over to LED lighting at the end of 2018. And hopefully the IRS tax code, the 179D, will be made good this year. So those of you who did do some energy efficiency projects, you'll have a nice 60 cent per square foot write-off or tax credit coming in the for your 2018 return. So let us know about that. If you want to know more information, of course, hit us up at big.lighting.com. Today is a special day. I've got a long time pal. I've probably known my guest on this episode for about, probably going back till 1990, 91. So 28 years. 28 years. Holy freaking moly. So, I mean, you think about that kind of stuff, and it seems like yesterday we graduated high school, but 25 years has gone by. He's done a lot of amazing stuff. What got him on my radar recently is that he did a spoken word kind of inspirational thing about like a talk about 10 minutes long. It's on his Facebook page where he entered the workforce, okay? Much like I talk about all the time, how we were constantly being hammered into ourselves in high school and middle school, not what you want to do, but what college do you want to go to? It's always been college. If you don't go to college, you're going to be a loser. That whole narrative. I kind of sort of followed that path. He did, and I'm reading on his Facebook page here. He studied Russian and Eastern European studies at Fairfield University, and then got a great job at a book publisher as a sales manager for New York State, and ultimately just kind of branched out on his own with doing what he's currently doing. He is the founder and head guide and owner of Destination Backcountry Adventures. Please welcome to the program, Mr. David DiCerbo. Thanks for being on, brother.
Awesome. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. That was quite flattering. I'm blushing over here.
Hey, man, we tried to get this going the other night.
Yeah.
If you're not watching the podcast, this is one to at least check out the visual, because we talked about Dave looking and resembling Mel Gibson.
Yeah, especially now that he's gotten the crazy beard like I wear in the winter season to keep me warm out there. Yeah.
It's not a bad thing, man.
No. Well, this is crucial up here in the Northeast. If you're working outdoors in the winter, it's a big difference maker when the wind's 40 miles an hour in the woods.
See, I have the tactical beard going, and I like the beard, but it basically outlines my jaw, which, as you can see, I need these days.
Well, that's the beard length I wear most of the year. It only gets burly mountain manish like this for maybe 5 months out of the year. But we're right in the thick of it. Right?
You couldn't get away with that. You couldn't get away with that working for the book publisher, I would imagine.
No. That was, my God, that was one of the many things. So to that, you're right. That's a pretty accurate recap of my professional career. When I did graduate college, my angst, sort of professional angst, started pretty quickly. When I was a senior in college, I had, as you noted, been studying Russian Eastern European studies, being the same age, graduating college in 96, 97, that whole area. it's the fall of the Soviet Union, these markets are opening up, and my senior year, I interned in a professional organization that was essentially, beating swords into plowshares in the former Soviet republics, and it was by all means a perfect job for me. But even then, senior in college, I freaked out because I had interned there, and I was doing the commute on 95. As a Connecticut guy, that. Well, it's 13 miles. Yeah. It should take you 40 minutes, or 15 minutes, or 2 hours. Right. And you have to account for all of that and all the aggravation that comes with it. So I went into teaching, and then eventually that led me into educational publishing with a few sidetracks along the way. And it was all the traditional markers of success, that we talked about: working hard in one position, being a sales rep, and then being promoted to sales manager, and all the perks that came along with it, and seeing the pride in my parents and, their peers of, oh, that's a great job. You're, hitting what really has been defined for a long time as the American dream. But particularly after the promotion, what frustrated me the most in that position, I think, what frustrates people most professionally a lot of the time is wanting to solve a problem. I firmly believe that people do find value in work, that people want to have fulfillment through what they do. And I find that therefore the most frustrating thing is often wanting to do something the right way and then not being given the tools to do so when you're part of an organization. And obviously that's going to happen. You can't have everything that you want. But if someone feels like there's a fundamental issue with where they are and they can't bring that, to any sort of resolution, that's the kind of thing that keeps you up at night. And I was finding myself with a lot of sleepless nights in publishing. And I started to really question, what I was doing. My friendships were suffering. My relationships were suffering. I think, despite being a pretty young man, I think my health was starting to suffer too. And I really started to wonder, is this what I'm looking at for the next 30 years? Is
this what I was meant to do?
Yeah, exactly it.
We have our self-awareness foisted upon us, at least we did in our generation. You got to go to college because if you don't go to college, you're not going to be successful, so on and so on and so forth. I remember you in high school being very you thought differently than the rest of the pack, from what I recall.
I think that's an accurate observation. I probably wouldn't have been aware of it until very recently. But as with the self-analysis that comes with age, I guess I have always been a bit unconventional. I think that's accurate.
Yeah. Which is fine.
Yeah. But again, you have this idea of, okay, that's fine. Everyone can be that way. But then when it's time, you buckle down, you put on the suit, you put on the tie, and you get into something that's a little more staid. You let those less conventional aspects of your personality not define you. When in reality, for some people, those those aspects do define them. So I did find it very difficult to sublimate my professional life to feel like I was living a duality. And I think a lot of people have that. You obviously are not going to let your entire private personality shine in the workplace. It's not professional. It doesn't do you good. But
and you're not the only one. There was it's funny. My sister-in-law is somebody who we went to school with, Megan McIntyre.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I didn't know that there was a relation there. So great, right.
Yeah, you've been, as long as I've been married to my wife, she's been a part of the family because that's right around the time that she and Justin started dating. Okay. But she had a Christmas party one year, and this is back when I was living in Vegas. I was in radio at the time. I did radio for, 15 years or so. And that was my gifting. I enjoyed my job. I got up every morning and excited. I didn't make that much money because it's radio. I had a tendency of picking failing and industries on the decline to get into. Yeah. So you live, you learn. Yep. But there was a party that she had, a little get together at the apartment, and a lot of our old alumnus were there, people that we went to high school with. That it was like a high school reunion, quite honestly. And a lot of the people that I wasn't really in the fray with back in the day, I wasn't part of their cliques and stuff like that. But we knew of each other. We all got along. We were all friendly. Got caught up with one of the guys there. He did the whole, 9 yards. The college, got the great job. He's got the house. He's got the family. That dude was miserable. And I told him, I said, we were just talking about what we do. I said, look, I'm not freaking knocking it out of the park financially, but I love getting up every day. I love my job. He's like, man, I wish I could say that. Yep. And I'm like, I learned that lesson early on when I was an electrician. I worked for an electrical contractor. Hated getting up every day. I'm like, that's not worth it.
Well,
that ain't worth it, man.
It's so funny that we're having this conversation at this time in particular. So, as a quick side, in addition to obviously running Destination Backcountry with my wife, that's full time and beyond job as an entrepreneur. But for this one quiet time in the season, back half in November and December, we operate 4 or 5 Christmas tree stands, and we operate them on franchise from someone else. And
very cool.
It's a wonderful thing to do. The guides love it. We carve these wooden reindeer. It's awesome. It keeps us all busy and what would otherwise be a really quiet time. But it's been very interesting to see after all of this time of being an entrepreneur to go, oh right, even on the tough days, I love going to my Destination Backcountry job. When you're doing something else that's okay, you might be working for somebody else or whatever the case might be.
That was something new.
Yep.
I found out like just at the last minute. We were going to get into the story that you told about meeting Yogi at the end of your trip.
Yeah.
But basically, you're. I'm like, what? You run Christmas tree? That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Yeah.
I love hearing stories like that. You're just going out and what do I need to do? I got to hustle. We got to figure something out.
It is, and it's looking at what skill sets and what kind of personality and talent do you have available at your hands, and you go, oh, well, these people are my guys, female and male, all show up with their own hatchets and knives and saws. So they're like, yeah, this is. Everybody say, oh, you're muscling that tree so well. We're like, usually we have to drag this, after cutting it 40 feet through the forest to go put it on a fire. Just bundling it and sending you home with it much easier.
Christmas tree enterprise.
Yeah, but
So getting into the story. You decided I've had enough. All right,
yes.
We are going to. I can't do this one more day. I'm done with the monkey suit. The good thing is that it did teach you selling, and I'm a huge proponent of that.
It is. Even within, Destination Backcountry, I always try and emphasize to our guides, like sales is not a dirty word, particularly with what we're providing. We're not foisting adventure on anyone who doesn't want it. We're offering a great solution to a problem that a lot of people have. And, I really do firmly believe that. And that was, I think, a skill set acquired also through restaurant work, which I think everyone should do at some point or another. The idea of making people happy, the idea of, hey, I've got all of the stuff you might want. Let's work together and get you I've got a whole kitchen back there, that type of thing. That was a crucial skill, but I was existentially miserable. I had been managing New York State for 2 years, and there were rumors that the company was being acquired. And as it came through, it was acquired. And I had the opportunity to stay on and sort of do that whole sorting out the corporate stuff, and just was not interested in letting people go on my team and, sort of trading personnel with the acquiring company. And it was a great opportunity to bail. So I did. And I knew that I never wanted to wake up and dislike my work again. And I knew that a lot of the things that I enjoyed up to that point were not particularly well compensated. And I thought to myself, having been on the other side of this now, having not had to worry about finances and yet worrying about my happiness, I don't like that arrangement. I'd much rather be a happy person that occasionally has to worry about, oh, okay, well, this is going to be a quiet time, or we have to do something else like sell Christmas trees for a period, like things like that. So I knew that I wanted to work outdoors, but I didn't know in what capacity. And I thought that being a forest ranger would be an option. Because of my background in teaching, I thought that maybe even doing environmental education. So I decided the best way would be to actually get out there, meet people, and also decompress by doing a ton of hiking. Mm-hmm. So I set out in early spring of 2008, and I had 8 hikes planned that were all between 7 and 14 nights, give or take a little bit. And the hike in question was a hike in New Mexico. And it was one where I was looking to challenge myself, traveling off trail, using just map and compass to navigate in a large wilderness where I was guaranteed by everyone that I talked to, you're not going to see anyone out there. The only people that go out there are hunters because there are no trails and it's not hunting season. So you're not going to see anyone. You're just going to see a lot of animals. And I did. And on what I felt should be my last day, I woke up. I remember that morning thinking, I've seen a beautiful place here, but I'm ready to head out. The idea of tacos sounded really good to me. Albuquerque was only maybe 2-hour drive away, and I was ready to refuel. The conditions were beautiful. It was late winter, early spring in the mountains, which it really is an amazing time because it's so dynamic. You can see fresh snowfall and then the earliest spring flowers popping through it. You get dramatic runoff with the snow, so the rivers are engorged. It's simply beautiful. So what I decided was going to be my last day, I started hiking out, and about halfway through the day, maybe mid-afternoon, I reach to check my bearing with the map and compass because something just didn't feel right. I was looking for a valley to turn into to find my way back the final mile or so to the car, and I just couldn't find it. I felt like I should have seen it by that point. So I reached into my pocket, and I pull out my map, but I don't feel the bulge of the compass. And I start to really panic a bit. The way I describe it to try and make it relatable is that if you've ever missed your phone or your wallet or your keys, it's that feeling, but exponentially, because what you're looking for is not to check your email or get in your apartment. It's to find your way out of a wilderness. And I go into full panic mode. I now teach psychology of survival as part of my survival school. And this is always a story I use to illustrate just how poorly the human mind functions under panic. We revert to animal state. And physiologically, we're just basically bracing ourselves to fight or flight. So panic, rummage through my bag, can't find the compass anywhere, pack everything up hurriedly because, my body's now surging with a glucose hit from the adrenaline. All of these things are just forcing me to go, go, go. So I do. I get it in my mind that if I can just get to the top of some rise of land, I'll be able to orient my map. There'll be a viewpoint. I'll see exactly where I am. So for the next 3 or 4 hours, every time the land went up, I went up at full speed, and I got to the top, and I'd be just emotionally devastated because it was thick forest with no views, and I had just sprinted, so I'm winded and sweating through my layers. Finally, I come across one of these large snowbanks. The snow drifts through the winter, and when it melts out in the spring, the big, deep snowbanks are the last to go. And I see a pair of boot tracks. So I run over to the snowbank and I look down and I see the boot matches mine. And finally I realize I'm exhausted. I haven't eaten, no water. And I realize, look, just stay out here. You've got a tent, you've got a sleeping bag, leftover oatmeal, ramen, whatever. Make a night of it. So I do. And I spend the whole night beating myself up mentally about getting myself into this situation. I'm thinking to myself, I have no right to be out here. The idea of following your dreams and doing something you love is crazy. This is why people don't do this stuff anymore, because you get lost in the woods. Really raking myself over the coals. Barely slept. Fateful few hours, and I wake up in the morning very grudgingly. I'm fortunate it's a sunny day, so I figure out which way east is, orient my map to the rising sun. Okay, that's approximately east. It was a beautiful day. There had been about 2 inches of snow had fallen the previous night on what was starting to be bare ground. So everything looked beautiful and fresh again. And I start making my way out to the car best as I can. As I'm making my way out there, I realize, wow, a lot of animal activity. I'm seeing little tracks, things running around. And then once I get to where I think I'm about a half a mile or so for the car, I'm pretty well oriented. The mistake I had made the previous day was I just hadn't gone far enough. I needed to go about another half a mile maybe in the direction I'd been traveling. I would have seen the valley that I was now in. You see these enormous black bear tracks. I know for a fact there are no grizzlies in New Mexico. Otherwise, I would have been like, those are grizzly tracks. Enormous. And it dawns on me, wow, I just missed this big girl because this is a fresh snow. And anyway, so I keep walking back to the car and I get back to my car and the window is smashed on the driver's side. The lift gate of the Jeep is open and the car is just simply ravaged. I had a lot of food packed with me. I had been restocking between my hikes, but a lot of the staples, oatmeal, trail mix, peanut butter, I had those things in large vacuum sealed containers and was restocking after each individual hike. So I'm looking at it, there are bear tracks all around the car, and there's food smeared everywhere. There's bear saliva, mixed with peanut butter, mixed with honey, all along the side of the car, and it's just simply ravaged. And I look at this, and I think to myself, my God, I barely missed this bear visiting here. Mm-hmm. Said, well, after last night getting myself so lost, I'm probably going to wind up calling the vice president of the publishing company and begging for my job back. But I should also let the rangers in this area know that there's a bear that's breaking into cars, which is really uncommon behavior. Bears will go into an open vehicle. The most daring thing I've ever heard of them doing is using their claws to lever off the windshield so that they can get in. But the idea of smashing glass is really unheard of. So I'm thinking this, and I'm starting to drive out. And I go, well, once I get to Albuquerque, I guess I'll delay those tacos for a little bit. I'll have to check into a motel and shower up. And I went, oh, no, right. I can't do that first. The window's smashed. I have to go to an auto repair place. Then I can check into a motel and get that hot shower. And then I think to myself, wait, I didn't see my suitcase when I was inventorying the damage. So pull over on the side of this dirt road. I look in the back of the Jeep and I'm going, where's my suitcase? Where's my fishing stuff? Where are my snowshoes? And I'm really having this mental disconnect for a second because I had seen the damage to the vehicle and I had seen only bear tracks around the vehicle. So I'm trying to put two together. And finally I realized humans had broken into the car at some point while I was out in the wilderness. And it was only the night prior that the bear finally sniffed out this enormous locker of food and came up to help herself of the 80 or so thousand calories that were stored in this food. And then it really dawned on me, and this really was really an epiphany, as close as I think I'll ever have to a Saul on the road to Damascus type moment. I just thought, wait a minute, this means that if I hadn't lost my compass, I would have gotten back to my car probably 5 or 6 o'clock the night before, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock. And I would have seen where the humans had broken in. Again, no bear visit yet. That was still in, that was to come that night. And I would have thought, well, I can't go to Albuquerque now because the glass repair places will be closed. I don't want to park this car, damaged as is already open to whoever wants to walk by in the motel parking lot. So I would have stayed right next to the car that night. I mean, I like to think that I would have had the common sense to go, 200 yards or so away. I've got a puppy who's trying to get into the view now.
That's fine.
She'd like to say hello. She's also saying, she's saying if she had been there, she would have told me about the bear. So, yeah, she's a good one. She's 8 months old. She's our trail puppy. And I realized then, as she comes in right at the epiphany, it could have been my guardian angel that stole my compass out of my pocket. I might have been mauled to death had I been there the night before. And I realized all of that time I spent making that a huge value judgment. And what was the first thing that I went to? The self-doubt was so strong that it was, don't follow your dreams. Don't follow your dreams. That's, this is clearly a sign. Don't follow your dreams. Don't do that. And I thought to myself, well, that's insane. Here I was immediately looking to sorry, she's being a bit much. Jesse, can you get the dog, please? Sorry.
Puppies, gotta love them.
Yeah, puppies, you do love them, but they just don't get it. I'll shame her. I'll shame her by putting her antlers on.
They're crazy.
Yeah, she'll walk. Yes.
And wagging and everything.
Yeah, they really are too much. So again, back to it. And then I realized what I was so busy to put a value judgment on. I was so busy to tear myself down and, looking for a reason that, this is not, what you do, because it was so ingrained in our generation of, that's what Kramer from Seinfeld does, coming up with some crazy business schemes, a responsible person, they'll work their job. They'll take the promotion. Of course it's stressful. It's stressful for everybody. And, I was so eager to do that when in reality, that wasn't the case in the slightest. And, sorry.
It was a metaphor for the beginnings of your entrepreneurial journey. You took the leap.
Yep, it really was. And at times since then, when I've really doubted myself, I've come back to times like that and others when I truly was, this isn't going to work. And it was usually due to something in the woods. We're never going to survive the night here. It's, the temperature's now 15 below and we're sleeping in snow caves. And you come out of that and you go, nope. You come out with that mental fortitude. Damn, those actually kept everybody warm. It worked. We built them right. And you build that confidence. And so when you're starting to doubt yourself as an entrepreneur, it's nice to be able to look back sometimes to go, oh yeah, no, we definitely made it through that. It's something a lot of our clients take out of the experience too.
But with that being said, it takes an intense amount of self-confidence to have that fortitude to get through it. And the thing is that even with me, a lot of the things I went through up to leading to my time of being a full-time entrepreneur and self-employed was I was always working for somebody else. I was, like you talking about being in the restaurant business, almost being a necessary rite of passage. I tell people all the time, if you want to learn about business to the fullest extent, sell cars for 2 years. I sold them for about 3 years. I sold Mercedes-Benz and Honda, and basically I always knew I knew how to sell going into that business, but man, did it teach me how to sell?
Yeah.
And ultimately, the most important thing, how to close a deal, and get people to the finish line. But all that information, all that teaching and training that I experienced in that business led me to another business, which taught me to not rely on one single income stream, and when that job ended, I remember I called my wife. She was getting ready to plan another camping trip. And I was like, hold on, just got to let go. She says, well, you got to start looking for another job. I said, Courtney, I don't think I'm going to. I'm going to do everything I've been building for the past. I've always had a side hustle since 2002 with voiceover, video production, things of that nature. But I said, I'm going to give this a go. And I'm going to sit down with a friend of mine who had a LED lighting business partnership a year before, and kind of tap into that. And maybe there's something there. I believe that there's something there. But the first 6 months, and she's like, what about Disney World? Because we were planning to go to Disney World for spring break. I said, come hell or high water, we're going. I don't know how I'm going to figure it out, but we're going to figure it out, and it harkens back to where if anybody who's listening to this and you hear Dave's story, understand the first 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, the first 5 years, you're going to be doing this. It's going to be, man, I'm on top of it. Oh my gosh. What am I thinking? Oh, dude.
Yeah. It's the 5-year quote. Yeah. The 5-year quote. That's probably right when I felt like, okay, right now there may still be dips, but I'm confident of the overall upward trend. Prior to that, you'd have these huge swings and you go, well, there's no discernible upward pattern. Sometimes the highs are higher, but the lows have been lower. Is that because that's rebounding for huge growth? But about 5 years in too, no question about it, power. Sorry, I just saw an icon come up that batteries about to. So your Mac will sleep soon unless plugged into a power outlet.
We need a wall plug.
Yeah, and I may be ready for a nap. As you can imagine, pretty long hours at the tree stands. Well, they're open 12 to 14 hours a day. So I'm usually there to open them up and then close them down. So between the two, it's they make for pretty long days. But
hustling trees.
Yeah, it's a sprint. I think as an entrepreneur, you talked about those peaks and valleys, and you have to be able to also, I think, apportion your time the same way a little bit too. There are times when you go, okay, look, 100 hours a week is not sustainable for 12 months, but maybe it needs to be for 6 weeks. And then, the payoff will come to a time of reflection, because I'm finding for sure, since this is geared towards entrepreneurs, those pauses are really when the true growth comes. And it's weird to think that way, but for us, when we've come up with good ideas, the ones that have really been good, not chasing shiny things like you may sometimes chase a strategic opportunity. Oh, wow. In the middle of a busy season. It's in our winter, we still do snowshoe, cross-country skiing, obviously things like that. But being less busy, having those months of reflection. So I think it's important for small business owners to always build in some time when you're not going at breakneck, when you can take a little bit of time to pause and, okay, this worked, this didn't work. What can we learn about, for the future? Because it's always, again, and I think it comes from our generation and the generations before us, the idea of like, well, put in the effort. If you're putting in the effort, the results will follow. Put in the time, work hard. And sometimes it's not always a brute application of effort that's the best way to solve a problem. That often it's the opposite of relaxing and giving yourself, a little window of again, reflection to really see things with a little perspective. Because I know that after 6 weeks of the tree stands, I'm ready to start guiding again. And by end of October, I'm shot from a season of guiding. So having those built-in pauses, it does. It really, I can't wait to get out there, and I can't wait to get into one of our vans at 5:30 in the morning, drive up to a frozen wilderness and take a group out. Whereas the idea of doing that at the end of October would have been like, man, it's one more day in that van, or, up another mountain. I just need a break. So.
And you're doing social documentation of everything you're doing to build your business.
I'm not doing any of that. The reason the company has been growing so well is because my lovely wife and business partner, Jessica, is doing all the social media documentation, things like that. She's doing plenty more than that, but that's very much the visible side of what's going down, our newsletters. And again, it's finding good partners when you can. I was very, very lucky. So.
Yeah, you got a lot of sex appeal when it comes to the pictures you can put on Instagram and stuff, man.
It writes themselves. It's amazing. We joke that that's the easiest thing is visual content for which is what Jessica said. Essentially, you've got all you need to do is have one person with the phone taking pictures and putting them up. And I'm like, that's a good point. She said, we'll get more if we curate it and have a strategy. But for God's sake, let's just get something up there. Let's put pretty flowers, puppies and children in the woods, all of those wonderful things. Yep.
Yeah, friends of mine were putting up, they were camping every weekend. And, I grew up camping in RVs and stuff like that. And my wife wanted to go tent camping one weekend. We did that. And I saw these posts being put up by a good friend of mine, Carmen Clapper, up on Instagram. And it's they're Airbnb-ing their house in East Nashville for the weekends. So they're cash flowing their house, and they're taking these trips just wherever, making memories and stuff. And I'm going, man, I remember doing that. It was so much fun. And we actually broke down and bought an RV, a little trailer 2 months ago. And we're just pledging ourselves to go out once a month and just do it. And,
awesome.
And got to make memories. And a lot of people kind of get into if anybody's listening, high school, friends of ours, or if anybody, you're just kind of dropping in and listening to this, analyze what it is you've always wanted to do. Okay. Now, and be realistic about it. Understand they got to be practical. You've got a family, you've got kids and obligations, but understand that the side hustle can become your full-time hustle, and that's exactly what your story was. It's what my story was. And it kind of, my back was pushed up against the wall. I had to do something. And as Brad Lee says, he said, he's one of the guys I interviewed and a huge mentor of mine. I love his podcast. Make sure you check it out. It's called Dropping Bombs by the real Brad Lee. He's out in Vegas. And he always talks about, look, if you want to make more money, do more.
Yeah.
If you're only making 10 to 15 phone calls a day, make 30. Okay. Do more and get better. A lot of problems can be solved, like what you're talking about with the hard work. Rich Redmond, another friend of mine, he's the drummer for Jason Aldean. He's here in Nashville. I've had him on the show. I actually produce his podcast. He talks about hard work. The passion is the engine.
Yes.
And hard work is the fuel.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, what a great analogy.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. It really is.
The thing is the biggest problem that's broken in the country is that the passion, the engine isn't there.
Yep.
Most people aren't passionate about what they do.
Yep.
College can't teach you passion. You got to tap into what it is that really floats your boat. My kids, I tell them all the time, look, if you want to go to college, I'm not saying don't go.
Yeah.
I'm saying you kind of don't need it anymore, depending on what you want to do.
Don't think of it as a prerequisite. Think of it as an option.
Right. And I said, always understand though what is required, and what I'm going to implore to you is you need to be constantly learning.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
Continuously learning. Yep. And in this day and age, there's no excuse.
No, it's true. We joke there's no excuse for ignorance when literally all of the information is available at your fingertips. Yeah,
really. You have the world's wealth of experience.
Yeah, provided you can sort.
Provided
you can sort the wheat from the chaff. But yes.
Yeah. Nice biblical quote.
Thanks, man. It's because I don't listen to reggae in the winter, so I got to get those references in somewhere. Throughout the summer, you've got all those references coming in on all the other great reggae artists, but I think it's a sin to listen to reggae when the temperature's below 65. So
Jay Coffey chiming in. I'm sure you know Jay Coffey.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wish I were better. It's probably better that I'm not getting distracted, but I see some comments coming through. So, but that's great. I like that Jay has a memory of me starting wood with a wet fire at 12 years old. That's starting fire with wet wood.
Fire out of wet wood.
Yeah. Well. When we were 12, there was probably gasoline involved. But as an outdoor professional now, what you do is one of two things. You either make sure you have a ton of tinder so that you can slowly warm up the fuel that you want to light, or also a knife, as always, is really handy. Cut away some of the wet on the outside, or even feather a stick so that you're increasing surface area. But when it's wet, be patient. That's the key.
Yeah, I've learned that trying to, because we try to do it as naturally as possible when we go camping, like camping in the fire ring. You probably look at our setup and be like, yeah, okay, Jim.
No, it's getting out. The skills are the same.
We glamp.
So do we when we're it's glamping, something we do too.
We have I call it the best of both worlds, because Courtney wanted to go tent camping again, and I'm going, and I said, how long are we going for? She goes, 5 days. I'm like, 5 what? In a friggin' tent? And she goes, yeah, what's wrong with that? I go, everything. I said, I like doing this, but dude, 5 days in a tent's going to be a friggin' nightmare. I said, 2 days was fine. I was, 2 nights in a tent, that was good. 5 days, I'm ready to eat a bullet. I said, why don't we do this? Look into it. And we looked into it. We got a hybrid RV where, the sides pop out. We got a pop out for the little bit bigger, but it's almost like having a tent. It's like, having a pop up, but with hard sides.
Yep.
And kids have their own bedrooms practically. They hang over the ground or whatever. We have a great time. It was awesome.
Yeah. And it always gets you to a spot where you can always explore deeper. If that's your base isn't a hotel. Your base is now an RV. And then from there, you can day hike and go a little bit further than you might have been comfortable from a hotel. And then you see if the kids get into, more of the backcountry stuff, then maybe you do 3 nights in a tent and see if you build it up to 5. But I like the hybrid thought there. It's good thinking.
Meaning that this podcast, I call it marinating your mind in good stuff. What do you listen to these days? What really kind of keeps you going when you have those days and you got to get a little bit of a spark of inspiration? You have a go-to mentor or mentors that you listen to, podcasts or anything?
Not really. I'm a big one for music to motivate my day. I know it's not the same, you're not getting the same advice. It's more of allowing me to focus on what I've got into. I've been getting more into podcasts. There's one that I've been listening to more. What was the one just recently? There's a podcast Jessica got me into that was pretty good. The name's escaping me right now. It shows you. We're coming off of peak season where I'm often out of technology's reach. So now that I'm getting into, the winter reflective time, it's usually January through March that I usually discover good things. So, it's funny. I used to listen to and I still do. I still listen to sports talk radio, but usually only in baseball season because I just don't care too much about the winter sports. But that's one thing. That's more of an escape. Other than what I believe firmly, the lessons that you can take for life out of following a sport like baseball. But that's a whole different subject.
You listen to WFAN?
I do still. Yeah. Yep.
I used to listen to them when I was going to broadcasts. I'm not a sports guy at all, but I always used to listen to them for some reason.
Oh, they're the pinnacle.
It was Mike and the Mad Dog on the afternoon. Hey, Mikey.
Yep.
And who was the guy in the midday? He always Russ Salisbury.
They had Steve Summers was the other one.
Steve Summers. Yeah.
Yep.
He always had this really kind of velvety way of talking.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's as a radio guy, that's you can definitely appreciate them as being masters of the craft.
Totally.
Francesa alone is intolerable, but it's like it is. It's like peanut butter without jelly. You're like, it's just sticking in my mouth, and this isn't really pleasant at all. But that's
well, Francesa's on. He's still on terrestrial, and Mad Dog moved on to satellite.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
He did. Yeah. Francesa retired, then unretired.
Well, I started at the home of rock and roll, I-95.
95. Yeah, I was in the hometown a couple weeks ago, sourcing some wood for reindeer, and I was at a knife sharpening place right next to I-95, and I went, it's just up in Brookfield. So
that's where I cut my teeth, man, in the production room.
Yeah.
We had production meetings out back that may or may not have involved smoking illegal substances.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, production meetings.
Yeah.
The production director would pull me. I was like, "Hey, man, why don't we do a liner about the sky?" And I'd look at him and go, "All right,
that's great.
Sure, let's do that." But yeah, that's where and a lot that my journey kind of really began. And it's kind of funny how even when we moved out to Vegas, my wife and I was so excited about it. She was kind of like, "Where are we going?" We'd never been west of the Mississippi at that time, in Cincinnati. And I said, we're moving to Vegas. This is what you signed up for. We got to move. And 2 weeks later, hey, we're in Vegas. And The first time I don't know if I've relayed this story in other episodes, but we were there about a week. We lived out of a hotel, which was odd. Had all our stuff in a U-Haul and stuff like that. Finally found an apartment, started unloading and moving in. And I was like, hey, I'll get you a pizza. You know, we'll meet for lunch. And she was unpacking and everything. And I go across the street to this California pizza place, which to me at the time was new. And, you know, hey, I'll order a pizza that's 13 inches and $25.
Yeah.
And, you know what toppings are, you know, $2 a piece or whatever. And I'm going, okay, that's, I'll never come here again, but whatever. And I looked at the list of locations on the menu and everything was in California, Arizona, and Nevada.
Yeah.
And I was going, holy crap, I am a long way from home.
Well, yeah, you are. Yeah.
I am, you know, you're a long way from home when you look at the weather report and you see, you're like, that's not familiar at all.
Yep.
You know, on the news.
Yep.
But man, it was crazy. But I mean, a lot of that was kind of played into my story where, you know, we got uncomfortable for a while, you know, much like in your story, harkening back to that, you got really uncomfortable and that helped you grow. Your lobster shell started to break and you got to expand out of it to grow another shell. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that story you tell has got so much metaphor in it, with peaks and valleys already built in, you know?
Yeah, literally and metaphorical.
Metaphorical. How do people follow you guys and find you?
Yeah, Jesse, our Instagram handle is Destination Backcountry. Yep. And
Destination
Facebook.
Backcountry.
Yep. And Facebook, same name. And those are our main two channels. I think Twitter is not something we use that often, apparently.
Twitter's kind of, they're like they're becoming the forgotten child.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but man, if you guys are looking for the biggest differentiation factor of your business is what, you know, they got three different tour guides.
Yeah, we've got some others. Our guides are simply the best. It's not even close. You know, we can all adventure to the same destinations. It's public land, but our guides are hands down. I mean, honestly, our apprentice and assistant guides could probably go tomorrow and work for our competitors as lead guides, but we require to guide for us a lot more than the state does. The state requires a license and certain certifications. We require a lot more, usually a year-long apprenticeship after they're already licensed, so they can learn, you know, the way we relate to the ecology type of thing we're trying to deliver, the way to provide the food that we're, you know, our hikers are accustomed to getting from us. So it's a big company, but it's our guides. It really is.
What's the most profound thing said to you by a client after a trip?
We had a woman brought to tears when she saw the Milky Way. It was on the second night of a 2-night trip, and her demeanor changed 180 degrees from that experience. We were all out on canoes at midnight, floating in this very remote wilderness in the Adirondacks, and we were all talking about how amazing the sky was and how there wasn't a cloud to be seen. And she, after about 5 minutes, goes, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I see a huge streak of clouds right down the middle of the sky. And went, no, that's the Milky Way. She goes, but it looks like clouds. And I went, that's because your eye is picking up trillions of stars. It can't differentiate them. She goes, but I thought our galaxy was the Milky Way. How am I seeing it? And I said, well, you know, picture, you know, a flat spiral, and we're just on one of the outer arms, and we're looking in, and she just, you hear silence, and then you can hear her very quietly, you know, just that really overwhelmed. And the next day she went from a typical type A New Yorker of like, let's get to the next spot, let's hit the next goal parts, let's do this, to the next day she's wandering. What are these called? Why do these ferns grow like that? You know, you could just see it was so profound. You know, awesome. We've had families that you see at the end of a trip. You can see them bonding throughout. That's always a really special thing. But yeah, I mean, we're lucky to get those moments. You know, I've gotten to see a lot of tears of joy in my career. I've gotten to see a lot of tears of pain and exhaustion too, to be perfectly honest. But I've seen a lot of tears of joy to balance those out. So.
Yeah, man. I mean, we did that one time when we lived out in Vegas. I may or may not have had a penchant for going out to Area 51 because it was only 90 miles away. Yeah, but you get 90 miles away from Vegas in the high desert. You're in really remote areas. Yeah, it was awesome. You can see stars forever.
Yep. Yeah, you can.
And then the camo dudes would come and chase you away, but you know, it's all right.
Yes.
But man, thanks for being on the
Jim,
program.
it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Of course, sponsored by Big Dot Lighting. Go to big.lighting.com. If you're a business owner or a facilities operator or someone who's in charge or a CFO or somebody, hey, they're talking about you. You hate the lights that just blink over you and they're flickering. I mean, they're probably giving you cancer, but that's a whole nother story. Give us a ring-a-dingy, big.lighting.com. Check us out on the web and, of course, follow us and all that good stuff. And let's start the conversation about getting you converted to LED lighting in your business and commercial facility. The JMVO Weekly Primer is also on Facebook. It's at jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast. Pick your poison. Please like, subscribe, and rate the podcast. I would love it if you did that. And, of course, let me know your comments. Or if you wish to see anybody else on this podcast, who should I be reaching out to? Dave, again, thanks for being on, man. Make sure you check Dave out. I've got all his information. That's going to be down below in the description. And, man, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. It was awesome. Thanks.
This is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast.